We are going to go ahead and get started. On behalf of Busboys and Poets, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion with John C Hampsey about his latest release, Soda Lake. We can clap and celebrate. That's what we're here for. Yeah, thank you, thank you. If you don't know anything about us, Busboys and Poets is a community where racial and cultural connections are consciously uplifted and a space for art, culture, and politics to intentionally collide. Our Busboys and Poets servers are going to be helping us out with drinks or any other orders you want to put in throughout the program. I also want to remind you that there will be a Q&A after the presentation and a book signing after the program. Oh yes, we want to get rid of as many of these as possible tonight, so as many as y'all are willing. And Soda Lake is here. Yeah, it's here available for purchase, so you can get as many as you'd like tonight. And now a little bit about the speaker we have presenting with us tonight. Also want to let everyone know we're going to be live streaming this, so when we pass around the mic during Q&A, just be conscious of that. Now a little bit about our speaker. John C Hampsey is professor of Romantic and Classical Literature at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where he has won the University Distinguished Teaching Award. Previously, he taught, oh yeah, something to celebrate, definitely. Previously, he taught at Boston University and MIT. His previous books include the critically acclaimed Paranoia and Contentment and his memoir, Kaufman's Hill. During his career, Hampsey has had more than 30 stories and essays published in such places as the Gettysburg Review, the Midwest Quarterly, the Antioch Review, among many others. And now I'll pass it off to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. How about a little hand for her? She's been really, really something. And this is such a cool bookstore with this whole connection with the history of civil rights and everything else. I just feel honored to read here. So thank you for everything you did. Yeah. And thank you all for coming. It's like a family and friend reading only. Family, friend, and stewardess I met last night. I'm very, very touched. And where's Kathy Cotter? It's a special night, babes, because it's a beaver moon.
It's a beaver moon.
Do you want to tell them what that is?
Well, I sent it to him in an email yesterday.
It's like the brightest moon every 10 years or something. Yeah, yeah. So we're all touched by that tonight. But seriously, I'm really touched you're here, and you know, I want to go beyond this book and me, and I want to just talk about what we're doing in this room with. You know, I'm going to read from this postmodern experimental novel in the realm of art, and outside there, in that world out there, there is so much going on, and sometimes art seems not that important because we have all this stuff going on, politics and everything else. And I just want to say I'm 71 years old. Never in my life has art been more important than it is right now. And whenever there's turmoil, whenever there's oppression, whenever there's confusion, the artists are always there, the singers, the songwriters, the poets, the novelists. Art is our response. We have to never give up on the creative powers of the mind and how art can make new unities of being. And so now more than ever, let's embrace the arts. And I'd like to dedicate tonight to art that we believe in and defend. So now let me talk about Soda Lake. I have a confession to make. I'm sorry, Madison, to tell you this, but I didn't write the book. Yeah, I didn't write the book. Yeah. Don't tell my publisher, they're going to be very upset. No, I've never had an experience like this in all my years of writing, probably never again, where the unconscious played such a large role in writing this book. I can't really explain it. You can't command the unconscious. You have to be open to it. Barbara and I have talked about this a lot, my sister, how it visits you. And so much of the book didn't feel like I wrote it. It felt like I uncovered it, whatever that means, if that metaphor works. And so large pieces of the book, and I'll talk about that when I'm reading tonight, feel like the unconscious was there. So dedicated to art, but the mantra of the night is the unconscious mind, which played such a large role in this book. So I don't need my notes. The first chapter is not in the unconscious, it's in the world of the real. The first chapter is literally something that happened about 25 years ago. Dugan, you know Central California. I was driving into what is now called the Carrizo Plain. It's a national monument. And in the middle of the Carrizo Plain is this 20-mile-long white salt lake. But I wasn't going there. I was going to this ancient, millions-year-old painted rock, 30 million years old. And the Chumash Indians took it over about 3,000 years ago, and there's all these pictographs in there that are now protected. But oddly enough, painted rock is in the shape of a giant vagina. And whoever put that there millions of years ago realized that women are the center of the universe. So I was going to painted rock. I didn't know anything about Soda Lake. And as I made the turn and came down, there was this white, brilliant lake spreading out in front of me. And I saw a little turn, lookout point. I went up to the lookout point and looked off. And I saw this car. This is all real now. This car pull up, stop, and this man in dark clothes get out of the car and run across the lake. Now, I guess Soda Lake's the only lake you can run across unless you're Jesus, because it's made of salt, not water. So I literally went down to see if he was okay, found his footsteps, stepped into them, got kind of scared because I was sinking into this primal muck, and I abandoned ship and left. That's part of chapter 1, that's real. Chapter 2, which I'm going to read a bit from in a second, is called The Garage Wall Man. And this is where the unconscious comes in. And many of you have been to my house. And you know there's garbage cans to the side of the house. And I was going out one night 20 years ago to either dump the ashtray or I used to have chickens, the chicken shit, I don't know what it was. And there was logs there next to the garage. And just for a second, the logs looked like it was a man. And it became a man. And his name is the Garage Wall Man. And we had Socratic discussions 3 or 4 nights in a row. And I would go out. He didn't look like a homeless guy. He had clean boots, clean shaven, fingernails glinting in the street light. And it's the Garage Wall Man who told me about McCuade. I didn't make McCuade up. I didn't make any of this up. He just started talking about McCuade. I just wrote it down. And McCuade is at the core of the book. So I'm going to read a little bit from the Garage Wall Man and then a little bit from McCuade. And then we'll have some Q&A and we'll go from there. Are we good? Okay. Good thing I'm loud. It's a little noisy out there. When I entered the garage room, I realized I had forgotten to throw the chicken dung out in the morning. It lay there, dry and ancient-looking on a leaf of newspaper atop the washing machine. I carried it through the heavy wooden gate, across the driveway, up the 3 stairs to the gray bin underneath the orange trees at the side of the garage. After closing the crusty lid, I thought I heard a cough coming from the garage wall, even though it didn't make any sense. I stared into the darkness, straining to see from the streetlight filtering through the leaves of the trees, but there was nothing. As I reached the stairs, some of the gravel shifted behind me. I looked back and stopped breathing to listen, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the light. Gradually, a dark shape grew out of the shadows, the rough outline of a man lying against the bottom of the garage wall. "Shit," a voice said, with the tone of someone who's been caught. A car passed up the hill, the headlights flashing through the trees, and I saw him distinctly for a moment, his face astonishingly clean-shaven, his body lounging like someone at a swimming pool. His right hand cocked behind his head and his legs crossed. "You don't have a problem with me sleeping here?" he asked, his voice calm. "I know your patterns. I'm never in your way." And then this damn cough. He coughed again as if to prove it to himself and to me. He shifted his position, his body shuffling some dead, brittle leaves. Even in the dimness, I could see he was lying on something, a piece of cardboard maybe. I backed a few steps toward the driveway in case he decided to stand up. "I'm still lying on the ground," he said. "You don't have to worry. You can't sleep there, mister. What do you care? You're living alone now," he said, gesturing with his left hand in the air. "You can go on as you always do. Forget you ever saw me. Everything will be like it was." He spoke as if he hadn't heard me and hadn't listened, and I wished I could see him better. "Don't worry, I'm not going to make soup out of your precious chickens," he said. "Though I do take an egg every now and then, eat it right out of the shell with a little straw, pure protein. A man can live on just 1 egg a day. And I get rid of the shell, so you don't have to worry about that. I've never taken anything else. You can stay here tonight, but when I come out tomorrow night, you have to be gone, or I'll call the police." The garage wall man dropped his head back on his shoulder as if he had nothing else to say. But as I moved down the steps of the driveway, he began talking again, something about always taking the cardboard with him in the morning, so I didn't have to worry about that either. I wasn't sure if he was talking to himself or to me. Back in the garage room, I poured myself a brandy, walked over to the wall, listened to see if I could hear him, still talking on the other side, but there was only a ticking sound in the roof. It was probably the termites. I put an old Van Morrison record on the one-piece stereo I inherited from my mother when she died, hoping the music would distract me from hearing the garage wall man, but the needle was worn, the speakers sounded tinny, and my chance at escape didn't happen. I lit a cigarette, looked over the manuscript notes spread atop the washing machine. It was no use. The garage man had ruined everything. I considered going back to the wall to see if there was a crack I could see through. Then I could watch him without him knowing it. But the cracks are always on the outside where the stucco crumbles. That's why nothing inside ever gets out, and why there is never enough room where we already are, making me wish I could see in the dark, like the animals. But we live within our own private bodies, even when the other side is just 6 inches of plaster away, where the garage wall man sleeps on his cardboard bed, trying not to think about the next day, when a dog will cross the street to fight with another dog for a reason only dogs understand, and passing cars with drivers whom the garage wall man imagines must be happy, while the puffy white air circulates on its own, pressing against the membrane of the sky until something gathers to begin, no matter the time, because nothing really depends on that for a garage wall man who only sees in black and white. I turned off the record player. I got this. I turned off the record player and left my unfinished brandy on top of the dryer. After switching off the light, I went inside the house, even though I was anxious to know if the garage wall man was still there. I desired to hear him again, consider returning to the garage, pinning my ear to the wall, but I shut off the living room lamp and went to bed. The next night, I avoided dumping the ashtray into the gray bin because I didn't want to know if the garage wall man was there, lounging against the wall, waiting for me. So I emptied the ashtray over the fence, hoping the neighbors wouldn't notice. After lighting a cigarette, pouring a brandy, though, I felt drawn to the side of the garage because I told him I would call the police. I didn't want him to think I was the kind of man who wouldn't do that. Everything was just as it was the night before, only this time I had a flashlight. "Where's your ashtray?" he asked. I aimed the flashlight near his feet, but could still see his clean-shaven cheeks, and I wanted to see how he managed that if he had no place to live. "So, are you going to call the police?" His face was handsome, strong-looking. He could have been a neighbor who just happened to be lying beneath my orange trees at night. He wore a dark coat that went almost to his feet and brown worker shoes that appeared new. His right hand was poised upon his hip. "You don't think I will make the call?" "I don't care if you do. I'll be gone by the time they get here and back after they leave. And if you call a second time, they won't believe you." "Not that long ago, I lived in Paris," he said, changing the subject. "I met a man there named McCuade. From Donegal, Ireland. Have you been to Donegal?" "I've been to Ireland." "Of course. Well, McCuade, he's the only man in my life that I believe was worthy of love." He paused. "Something timeless between McCuade and me. I'm telling you, even though you can't understand." I didn't want to hover over him anymore, so I sat on the low wall next to the orange trees and turned off my flashlight. A moment later, he pulled something from his pocket. "Since you're sitting, you don't mind if I smoke the last part of this cigar, do you? I never get to smoke out here because it would draw attention, but now, why don't you go get your brandy and cigarettes?" "That's okay, I'm fine." I wanted to get my brandy and cigarettes, but he'd want a brandy too, and then, "I'm Irish as well," I said. "I'm sorry, I'm Irish as well," he said, raising his voice just a bit, like he was excited to talk whether I listened or not, his words smooth and steady, not like a homeless person rattling on. "2 generations back, my family came from a small town outside of Belfast. But McCuade, he's from the kidneys of Ireland, northern Donegal." "My family's from Cookstown," I said, "just west of Belfast." "Ah, well, but McCuade, we ended up in California at a ranch not far from here. I had an old friend who needed his place taken care of, had a splayed skin in that valley, and I didn't know anything about ranching, but McCuade did. He could handle those cattle. He learned to wrestle with the llamas." So you and this man McCuade came all the way from Paris to run a ranch in Central California. He took a puff from his cigar, the smoke floating into the high shadows of the trees, the orange glow momentarily illuminating his clean, fine fingers. He seemed familiar in that moment. We were out of money in Paris, couldn't pay the bill for our little room on the top floor of Rue Mouffetard. And we had this opportunity and a letter waiting for me at the American Express. I said, McCuade knew all about that. What happened? There was not much left of his cigar, but he seemed intent on smoking to the end, touched the ash into one of the paving stones next to the cardboard bed. It went well until last fall. My friend who owned the ranch stopped paying the bills, but McCuade kept on taking care of the cattle and llamas. He knew each one by name. McCuade loved that land and didn't mind the heat. I remember one night after dinner in the hot stillness, sitting on the porch with Irish whiskeys, he said, "We're still ranchers, aren't we, laddie? Like gods we are. Living in this valley, gods with balls of kerosene, lighting up the lifeless land and the animals beneath us, beating back the nerves of the sky until everything appears infinite. In the morning, having coffee on the fog-shrouded porch, eating a cantaloupe we had borrowed from a neighbor's field. Sharing slices from my knife, McCuade's half-smile, jaw jutting. My God, I loved the look of him. I punched a man at Cayucas Tavern one time just for bumping into him. McCuade sitting at the corner of the bar that could have been the center of the world, smiling, clean-shaven, drinking his black and tan. They threw both of us out of the tavern, but every now and then McCuade and I would go back. We still had the ranch truck to drive, just so they could throw us out again. McCuade loved the playful fury of it. Sometimes we drank so hard we'd forget the truck and walk back to the ranch in the late dark, when so many sounds in the earthly night seem hopeful. A couple months ago, the sheriff came by with one of the deputies, put a sign up in the yard, tape across the front door, told us we had to leave. We rode with the sheriff alongside a shimmering white expanse. At a bend in the road, McCuade leaned over and told me he couldn't go to the police. He had no visa. The next moment, he jumped and was running outside across the lake. The sheriff stopped the car but didn't pursue him, and McCuade vanished into the dry, white lake and sky, just like a god. Soda Lake? Do you know it? What happened after that? I believe he's back in Donegal. He always told me, if there's ever any trouble, laddie, I'll just go home. The garage wall man's voice drifted off. His head dropped into the shadows below the line of dabbled streetlight. His cigar was out, his hand fallen to the side. His body shifted positions. Everything went still. As I headed down the pavers, he spoke again, incantation-like. You have to keep living through the sudden black blood of things, because the earth is never quiet, not nearly quiet enough, with piercing wings fighting the descent, but oh, not madness yet. And I will punch any damn son of a bitch right into the corner while everyone else is dancing until the nerves of the sky are beaten flat and there is a pulse of peace. I didn't bother going into the garage room the following night, but went directly to the side of the garage wall where he was already asleep. After turning off my flashlight, I sat on the wall. He seemed to have no sense I was there. Mister, I wanted to let you know I will find McCuade for you. I'm going to Greece for sabbatical, but I can stop in Ireland along the way. I can look for McCuade. I don't know why you're talking about McCuade, the garage wall man said, without turning his head. I barely remember him, and I'll be gone in the morning. Take the cardboard with me. It'll be like I was never here. But you talked about McCuade last night, don't you remember? Forget McCuade, he said, raising his voice. In the dim light, I could see he was unshaven. What's the matter with you, I asked, struggling to still whisper. Do you want me to bring you something to eat? McCuade doesn't exist. I made him up. I leaned back in disbelief, my hands landing in some sharp needles falling from the orange trees. How could McCuade not be real when so much was already depending on him? So much that the garage wall man himself seemed to fade back into the shadows until I almost couldn't see him. I was afraid if I turned on my flashlight, he'd be nothing but a pile of wood in the shape of a man. The garage wall man lunged into a sitting position. I could feel his heart breathing. I could hear his voice. And then he stopped. I could bring you a cigar, I said. I have one from the wedding. I went out to Soda Lake. You remember Soda Lake, mister? I don't smoke, he snapped. Both of our voices ceased by their own volition, and the garage wall man returned into his shadow, and maybe that is how I missed him for so long when I headed to the garage bin at night, and he was always there. Couldn't wait for darkness to come the next evening, so I could tell him I was sorry about everything. I went out earlier than usual, taking with me the brandy bottle, the 2 glasses, the ashtray, the cigarettes, matches, and the cigar from the wedding. I expected to be clean-shaven, up for talking. As soon as I turned the corner, I saw him curled on his side, already asleep. I moved quickly up the stairs, tripping on the last step. After I caught my balance, I realized the garage wall man wasn't there at all. It was just a pile of wood inside the shadow. He must have placed the wood there, so I would think it was he. And he wasn't worried about termites because the wood was directly against the wall. I moved the wood to the kindling pile, sat on the low wall under the garage, under the orange trees, and waited. With the absurd bottle of brandy, glasses, ashtray by my side. Eventually, my back got sore. I went in, taking everything with me except the cigar. The following morning, when I tossed the chicken dung into the bin, the cigar was still there, but in a different spot, farther along the wall. Maybe he had picked it up and decided against smoking it, unless the wind had rolled it down the pavers, or maybe a blue jay, or a possum's tail. Inside the garbage can was a blue sheet of paper that didn't come from my house. It had light pencil scribblings across it at different angles, a result of writing in the dark, I thought. And the script was slanted. Only a left-handed person would write that way, making me remember how the garage wall man always raised his left hand whenever he gestured, his fingernails shining in the dim light. I brought the paper inside and looked at it under a lamp. The scribbled words were nearly impossible to decipher, but I copied what I could, stitching them together in the way the garage wall man would have intended. Tomorrow, flying out of the dark earth, the sudden blood thickens, because I tossed the rock bird, and everything gathered to begin. Ever since the door closed, I'm a little warm, but it's all good. After that, there's a chapter called Father Fenton, the only chapter set in San Luis Obispo. It's set at Costco. It's out in the fields where the Mexican workers are. It's downtown San Luis with Linnea's Cafe. Father Fenton is a priest. And I'm not going to say much more than that because the ending is a surprise ending with a real reveal. And then the chapter after that is called Helena. It was published in the Antioch Review. I don't want to say too much except that it's the obverse of Father Fenton. And it's about a woman in Chicago trying to make it and gets confused with images of Jesus and bizarre Catholic sex, a few other things going on. I'm not going to say much about Helena either. Got to get you to buy the book. And after Helena and Father Fenton, at the center of the book, chapter 5, is the McCuade chapter. And just a little story here as the background. I talked to my friend Brad, who was there at the Cal Poly reading, and I told him about Garage Wall and McCuade, and am I losing my mind, and I didn't make any of this up, and the unconscious made the logs come to life, and there's McCuade. And Brad says to me, John, you have to go to Donegal. I said, what? He said, you got to go to Donegal and look for McCuade. I said, but McCuade's not real. He goes, you got to go. So I applied for a sabbatical for the spring of 2013. This is what you got to love about academic freedom. I applied for a sabbatical to go to Donegal to look for McCuade, and, you know, the whole thing ended up getting paid for. The flight, the B&Bs, the whole thing. And back then you had to have a sabbatical interview to see which one was worthy. They didn't all get funded, and they put it in a, you know, they rated it at the top and the bottom. And I tried to explain the sabbatical committee what I wanted to do, and this wonderful, brilliant, half-crazy philosopher named Paul Miklowitz. He always wore a leather coat. And he comes up to me in the middle of the meeting. He says, so let me get this straight. You want us to pay for a flight. You want to go to Donegal. You want to stay there. You want to travel around. You want to ask people questions. You want to find a man named McCuade who's not real. And I said, exactly. He said, that's fucking beautiful, man. And the sabbatical was rated #1. So I did go to Donegal. This is all true. Spring of 2013. And I went to where the garage wall man said he was from, a little town called Dung Lo. And I literally stayed there. I'm not going to say too much about it. It's all in the McCuade chapter. Everything in the chapter is exactly as it happened. I don't know if anybody's ever written a chapter as it happened looking for somebody who's not real. But I literally went to hardware stores and pubs, asked about McCuade. He used to work on the Botox. He used to work over here. And then somebody says, he's working up at that golf course, that famous golf course, Ballyliffin. He's a tender of the greens. He's a truer of the greens. So I left Dung Lo, drove to Ballyliffin, asking the pro shop. Nobody knew anybody named McCuade. And then I saw this caddy, this old man with this long gray hair, all true on my mother's grave. This character looked like a refugee from a Beckett play. Long gray hair. And I said, you ever know a guy named McCuade? He goes, that laddie owes me money. He said, he's up in Mallinhead, working on the boats. So I look in the map, and Mallinhead is the northernmost point of all of Ireland. You go through Northern Ireland, but you come back into the Republic. It's in Donegal. It's the very tip. So off I went to Mallinhead. And I got there. There's only one place to stay, the Seaview Tavern. Got a room. Started asking everybody about McCuade. That night, I ended up in the pub after the dinner that cooked by the ex-chef of Margaret Thatcher. God, the food was good. And then we get to the pub, and Jimmy, anybody's been to Ireland, Duke, everybody starts singing, and the guitars come out, and everybody has to sing a song. I thought, they're not going to call on me. And they did. And I couldn't think of an Irish song, so I sang, I've been working on the railroad. I've been working on the railroad. But I see this guy in the corner. He's clean-shaven, he's quiet, and he sings. Oh my gosh, he sang the most gorgeous song about a girl who's lost in the moors, and I buy him a beer, and I want to go talk to him. He looks like McCuade. I get him the beer, and he leaves. I thought he went to the bathroom. He'll come back. He never came back. I said, where'd that guy go? The bartender. She says, well, word has it, he's on a boat. He's got a boat. He goes over to Scotland and back. Black market stuff. We don't talk about it too much. I said, what's in between? She goes, the island of Innistrahall. I said, that's where I'm going tomorrow. She said, you can't just go there. It's uninhabited. There's only one way to go. It's really dangerous. On the far side, the Portmore Landing. All that's there are some abandoned stone houses from the 1930s. That's when people last lived there. An abandoned lighthouse on the east side, a working lighthouse on the west. No people, nothing there but rats and these silk deer. She said, I can get you there, though. I know a fisherman named Jeremiah. You have to meet him at 6 a.m. If the weather's okay, he'll take you there, and he'll come back at the end of the day to get you. So I go up to my room above the pub. I didn't get any sleep because they're drinking all night. I'm right above the pub. Somehow, after an hour and a half sleep, I get up, hungover, go down. It's foggy. And there's this fisherman with his cap down named Jeremiah. And we get in the boat, and it's really rough. And I think I'm going to throw up. But then I remember, Chris Church, where are you? I've been throwing up since high school when you put bourbon in my beer at my mom's house. I was 14. He brings me into Portmore Landing, the far side of the island. It's very sketchy. There's just a slab of concrete and a stick, and I get out, and he says, I'll come back an hour before sunset unless the weather's bad. I said, what am I going to do? He says, you're going to have to figure it out. I have a backpack with a candy bar, a bottle of water, a poncho, an Irish cap, a notepad, a pen, and he leaves. And I go traipsing across the island thinking McCuade lives there. Get to these stone houses, convinced he lives in one of these stone houses. I go in and find a fireplace. There's two books there, of course. One is a book by Yeats, and can't think of the other book now. I'll think of it in a second. It's in the chapter. And Remnants of a Fire and a Stool. And so this kind of picks up. It's the very last 5 or 6, 7 pages of the McCuade chapter. And it's going to get a little hallucinogenic. And all I can tell you is, I don't know who wrote this, but I know it's true. How are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. I'm going to read about 7 or 8 minutes and take some questions. Okay, hold on. Here we go. I had to decide whether to wait for McCuade at Portmore Landing or back at his house because it was nearly dark and soon I wouldn't be able to see where I was going without my flashlight, which I wanted to save. The house made more sense because I might not be able to find my way back to it if I went to Portmore. Besides, I could smell the rain coming again and needed to be under the shelter. McCuade would have to go to the house too to spend the night, and I wanted to get to the blankets first. As I walked through the twilight across the blackened moor, the soggy moss tried to grab my feet, wanting to turn them into ancient Innistrahall stone. I had a flash of nervousness. What if Jeremiah didn't come back in the morning and I was abandoned on the island? I would have no choice but to rely on the coming of McCuade. Remember, there's no self-service, there's no phone, there's no water, there's nothing out there. When I could no longer see where I was stepping, I turned on the flashlight. Hooray for the girl at the Dunglow hardware store. I bought this flashlight in Dunglow, and I told the girl about McCuade because I asked if she knew him. And as I walked out, she says, "I hope you find McCuade, mister." There's a pile of wood next to the house I hadn't noticed before. After climbing through the window, I found my coat, the 2 books exactly where I left them. Feeling completely cold, I got under the blankets and huddled up, hoping McCuade would come soon and start his nightly fire. The other book's by the Irish poet. The green fuse drives the flower. Who's the Irish poet? Oh. No, I'll think of it. No, the Yeats is one. The other book. Huh? No, damn it. It's okay. I wished I could light the candles. I wish I had some brandy to help pass the night, but McCuade controlled all those things. After drinking half the water, Dylan Thomas. There was a book by Dylan Thomas and a book by Yeats. I leaned my head back against the cold stone wall, listened to the rain begun to fall. I need to keep track of everything that happens tonight. So I got my pen and pad of paper out of the knapsack and started a log. The problem was writing in the dark, which is difficult to do. Whenever I'm reading from the log, I'll go like this. The rain is falling hard, but the roof is not leaking. The water funnels in through the window, drips onto the stone floor. When the wind stops, I can hear the sea breaking in the distance. I turned on the flashlight, checked my writing. It looked like gibberish. Who can write in the fucking dark? I asked aloud with an Irish accent. But if it looks like gibberish, McCuade won't be able to read it. I resumed my writing without seeing. Feeling forlorn, Old Middle English word, forlorn, a philosopher's word, Heidegger's word once, I am forlorn, lost in the world qua world without him, and now my world. Slept a little while, dreamed I was a priest, living atop a hill in a monastery, mingling with the others but alone after so many years, questing for it, finally to be there and then not having the courage to leave, to admit this isn't it at all. After everyone else had left Sister Helen's 5th grade classroom, I remained by the door. Her pale, perfect face, her sharp, perfect figures, ensconced by the severely starched white habit and black veil. I was only 10, but I looked right at her. I love you and want to marry you, I said. When I am older, if you will wait for me, sister. And she, you're a silly boy. You know nuns can't marry except to Jesus. She showed me her silver ring and told me about the church, desperate need for vocations. If you have love enough for God, she said, you could be his emissary, his blood in life, his priest. Oh, yes, I said. Then as a priest, I will marry you. And she, priests and nuns can't marry either, my silly boy. But sister, in the Church of Jesus Magdalene in France, they can. There is no church such as that, she replied with impatience. There is, I said. A man sleeping behind the rectory told me, and he looked just like a saint, sister, just like a saint. A hobo sleeping behind the rectory? She was shocked. That's impossible. But I saw him, sister. And that means we could live in France, sister, if you will wait for me. McCuade whispered from outside the house, I've been here since you entered Donegal. But I could feel his presence inside. I climbed out the window with my flashlight. There was only the dark wind, slicing rain. Because I am forlorn, I am hearing him before he has arrived. Went back into the house, ate the chocolate bar, finished my water. There is nothing left. McCuade might bring water, but he has already left the blankets. Maybe that is enough. Closed my eyes again, but opened them a minute later, startled by the stillness. The rain and wind had ceased. I returned to my log. What a fool I am for not figuring out sooner what I must have known for quite a while. McCuade is more than a man. He is the essence of all one imagines McCuade to be, the essence of something we call McCuade. Portmore Landing, the sea rock flesh of it, the truth into Innistrahall and the truth out of it, and Jeremiah, my St. Christopher, will carry me from Innistrahall to Mallinhead, from the 2-billion-year-old McCuade rock too, because he has seen me and knows I am not equipped to stay longer. I am ready, I wanted to say aloud. What was that? Nietzsche asked about the corporeal life of Jesus and the apostles after Jesus' death, wondering, who was that? The rain had receded forever, so I could hear his footsteps on the green-soaked moss just beyond the door. McCuade, is that you? I yelled across the darkness, turned on my flashlight, climbed out the window, this time determined to see what was there. Walked through the damp, high grass around the cottage, but couldn't find him. Could he have gone inside the house while I was outside looking for him? Went back toward the window, and that's when I heard him calling from inside the stone house, McCuade, is that you? He's calling himself now. How cunning of him. Conclusion. You can't make yourself hear McCuade. He has to do the calling, and we have to be ready to listen. And so that's why everyone except McCuade has left Innistrahall. And that's why in Innistrahall, Ireland's northernmost island, time loops around like a beam from a lighthouse. Things seem to happen with some variation. Time passes, but there is no real movement beyond the inside and outside voices. And one is trapped within an unresolved moment, the magnetic opposite of what happens 5 miles across the sea at Mallinhead, where the texture of time passes like shadows from a distant planet. I have to leave this place and go down to Portmore to free myself from this moment. McCuade will have to bring his boat in there, and Jeremiah, sometime after dawn, I will be waiting. The rain was over. I figured it couldn't be any colder at Portmore than inside McCuade's stone house. Complete darkness at Portmore Landing. No stars, no moon. The clouds are invisible. The sky has retreated. 4:30 a.m. There was a tiny boathouse next to the concrete dock that I missed when I landed. Its green door was padlocked, and there was no way inside. I sat on the metamorphic rock next to it, resting my back against my knapsack, covering myself with the blanket. Broke my pledge and turned the flashlight off. Who cares? Sunrise will come in less than an hour. Closed my eyes, counted the seconds between the sweeping flashes from the lighthouse a half-mile away. I wanted to sleep, but wouldn't let myself. Without warning, the rain started again, falling hard this time. McCuade wants me to return to his stone hovel. Put on my poncho over the blanket, drew down my Irish cap, huddled against the door of the boathouse, worried Jeremiah might not come with all the rain, and that dawn itself might not arrive. My pants were soaked. I put on the flashlight to see if I was sitting in a puddle. The beam was already dimming, so I turned it off, thought about throwing the flashlight into the sea, but didn't. The rain was so constant, the darkness so fixed, I wondered if I was still caught inside the looping Innistrahall moment, even though I was no longer inside his house. Total impasse. Where are you, McCuade? I yelled, no longer fearing my words coming back at me through him. Fixed my eyes toward the east, past the low, rocky hill where the abandoned lighthouse stood, challenged the dawn light to appear, challenged myself not to stop staring till it did. Waves of darkness seemed to be closing around my huddled pose upon the rain-drenched concrete slab, the last small stage inside a disintegrating theater. Looked away just long enough to cut the top off one of the plastic water bottles with my penknife, placed the makeshift cup out in the rain. I am freezing and wet, but I don't have to die of thirst. Whenever the lighthouse beam flashed, I checked to see if there was enough water worth drinking, and that's how I missed the gray-green light coming over the peak of the hill, leaking around the sides of the brightening sea. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and I could hear, beyond the final storm, a dog barking somewhere, but knew that was impossible. A few minutes later, the throaty sound of a boat engine not far off. turned west to see a bow light closing in on Portmore Landing. It had to be Jeremiah, except that he wouldn't leave Mountainhead until first light, and the dawn was not yet full, and he didn't have a dog with him before. As the approaching light neared the inlet, I could see the outline of the boat, but wasn't sure if it was Jeremiah's. Jeremiah, is that you? McCuade, is that you? Jeremiah, McCuade. Yes, it is. Thank you. As I said, I don't know who wrote it, but I know it's true. Thank you all. It was a little bit of a challenge with that, but it worked out great. Yeah. So, any questions?
We can
Maureen
pass around the
McDowell.
mic just
That's
for...
my first roommate at Holy Cross over there, Bill Reardon. He lasted a month, and then my dog Strider peed on his bed, and he fled. That's another Holy Cross friend of mine there. That's my old student in the back. Chris Church, I grew up with right there. What a collection. And the greatest star of all, the stewardess from the airline who gave me free drinks and food.
Okay, we're going to start with this person right here, and we have about 15 minutes. And we're just using the mic for live stream purposes. I know we're a close crowd, but
We're going to do some book signing.
yes, and we'll do book signing after the program.
Drinks are on Madison.
Hey, Uncle John. That was great. I have a question about timing. So you said 2013. That's when you had your sabbatical?
That's when I had the sabbatical. That's when I went to look for McCuade.
So 12 years ago. So I'm just wondering, why 12 years? What happened in that period of time that got you to this place where you felt comfortable?
Well, I came back. Do I need my mic? Or can I sit here? I can stand. It's okay. I can stand. No, go ahead. I know, but it's being live streamed somehow. I don't know. So, good question. I know there's a bit of skepticism there.
Oh, healthy skepticism.
Yeah. So there's a little skepticism there. Is this good? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So I came back all fired up to write the McCuade chapter. And this is how things go. It's just the way it happens. I came back, was so gung-ho to write it. And as I got back, I got a note from the publisher at Bancroft Press that my memoir, Kaufman's Hill, was taken. So for the next year and a half, I was consumed with revising it. Kaufman's Hill came out, the tour. I didn't get back to McCuade for a couple years later. And then in 2018, Barbara, where are you? My sister's in the end of the book. 2018, I won this writer residency at the Heinrich Boll House. Heinrich Boll, B-O-L-L, won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1972. He's from Bonn, Germany, and he got the Nobel Prize, and he was really just disillusioned with Germany after the war. Don't worry, I'm paying attention to your question. And he left and he went to Achill Island. Achill Island is the most far west you can go in Ireland. You can drive to it. It's really primal, really gorgeous. And Heinrich Boll built a house there for his family, and he lived there for the next 20 years. And after he died, this artist organization took it over, and they have a residency program. Painters, singers, poets, novelists. You go there, and you live in this 7-room house built by Heinrich Boll, his house, alone. No Wi-Fi, nothing. So I applied, and I got this writer residency, 2018, for the month of September, and I went to Boll's house. And I decided this would be the last chapter of Soda Lake. And like McCuade, whatever happened in the Achill Island while I was there for a month would be what's in the chapter. And I should have realized sooner on, when COVID happened, the same thing happened. I'm an extrovert, obviously. And alone in this 7-room house, no Wi-Fi, nothing, by myself, I started losing my mind. For the first time in my life, I started talking to myself. And I would go to the pubs at night just to have Wi-Fi and see somebody. Then I'd get back at 11:30, and I'd start screaming at McCuade, and I started recording the conversations. And that is the last chapter of Soda Lake. It's called Achill Island. And at some point, Barb, I hope you're okay with this, I said, thank God my sister's coming, because I'm close to madness. And A week or so later, Barbara flew to Dublin, took the train across Ireland. I picked her up in this great town called Westport, and we went to the reading at this great place called the Valley House in the center of the island. And that is at the end of the chapter. Barbara's actually in the chapter. I'm not going to really tell you what happened because McCuade takes over the book in Ackle Island. It's like he couldn't take it anymore, and he starts narrating. It becomes this battle. So that's 2018. And then it took me another 2 years to finish the book. I finished 2020 during COVID. Had another sabbatical. And then it took me 3 or 4 years to get a publisher because the book is so bizarre, so experimental. Nobody wanted to publish it. Ironically, Simon & Schuster turned it down. And then eventually this wonderful press out of LA, Rare Bird Books, picked it up. This is a year ago now. And as of January 1st, as in 2 months from now, they're going to be acquired by Simon & Schuster. So January 1st, I'll be published by Simon & Schuster. That's another whole, bizarre turn of events. But I don't know if I answered your question, Jay. Are you questioning my timeline?
I was just wondering how that experience in 2013 you expressed so vividly in the chapter you read. How did you, when did you put that to paper? And how did you trust your memory of that?
Well, I had all the notes. I mean, I really did keep a journal on Innistrow Hall Island. I kept a journal all along the way. Dung Low, the Ballyliffin Golf Course, I had notes. So I had it all there. It was just a question of going back to it after Kaufman's Hill came out and writing it all down. The memory is a funny thing. Yeah, I mean, in Kaufman's Hill, my memoir, Bancroft Press made me have a disclaimer. And it says, I think, everything in the book is true according to how I remember it. And Kathleen, we've talked about this. The memory, there's the play that the memory has with fantasy. And sometimes you think what you remember is true, you're not really sure. But, yeah.
Any other questions?
Did you get some pictures, babes? It's my love, Amanda.
No worries, we got time
Jennifer.
for one. Okay, I see you
Brother-in-law
back
Paul.
there.
John, that was terrific, and I found myself dreaming along with you at the garage man wall because I've been there and I've cleaned out your bins there and been through all that.
He has.
That mess. But my question: when the guy got out of the car at Soda Lake and started running across it, how the hell did he make it? I mean, he couldn't have gotten very far as you waded up to your knees after a few feet.
And he disappeared. It was bright daylight, and he disappeared into the sunlight, the white salt lake. He just disappeared. You're right. When I went down, I only went so far,
He probably
and my
sunk.
feet started sinking in the muck. And then I left and went to Painted Rock. Then I felt guilty, Catholic guilt. I came back at dusk and tried to go in again. And then I went back the next day. This is ruining the chapter for you, but and then I went back the next day. The footsteps are gone. So I will tell you this. Ackle Island is the last chapter, but there's a little 5-page coda at the end. And if you don't cheat, don't go to that first. It explains, I think, what you're asking about right now. Who really ran upon the lake and what really happened. But I can't tell you that. Oh, you went there with Paul. That's right. Yeah.
Any last questions? We have time for 1 to 2 more.
2 more.
No worries
Dugan.
if not.
How does Gerard Manley Hopkins explain
He, I'll tell you what, I'm working on a new book that's halfway finished called Blood and Spirit, probably be my last book. And it's memoir-like. Gerard Manley Hopkins is in that big time, as you are. First chapter set in 1972 at Holy Cross. Chapter 2 and 3 set on Martha's Vineyard, the Great Lakes. He's coming, Hopkins is coming back, you're coming back. And your pops is coming back, who we've buried several times. How many times have we buried your dad? Yeah. His father was Colonel Jack Dugan, the last helicopter cavalry commander to leave Vietnam. Came back weighing 98 pounds, diabetes. He was the guy Robert Duvall was based on in Apocalypse Now. Am I exaggerating? No. Then he comes back, and the governor, what's the governor's name? Yes. Hires Colonel Jack Dugan to start the California Conservation Corps. Yeah. So And then his dad died in Sacramento. I was asked to give a eulogy, and that's when we decided we're going to keep burying your father over and over again. The Irish way, yeah.
He would appreciate that.
Yeah, love Jack. And Mike has a son now named Jack. Yeah. One more question?
Yeah, open it up one more time. Okay, right here.
What are you, my great niece? Yes. Katie, my great niece.
Did everything like you say in the book actually happen? Like every single thing?
What's that? Say it again.
Did like every single thing you say in the book actually happen?
Everything that I just read in that McCuade chapter actually happened. Everything in the Soda Lake chapter actually happened. Everything in the Garage Wall Man chapter happened. The Father Fenton chapter is made up. Helena's made up. There's places where I'm creating fiction. There's places where I'm not in control of it. The Acco Island is as it happened. It's just a mix of the unconscious and the conscious, and knowing when to listen to which voice. Somebody at San Francisco last weekend asked a question about how do you know when it's the conscious and how do you know when it's the unconscious? And I really don't have a good answer for that question, except in the unconscious, you're not in control, you're listening. In the conscious mind, you're shaping and creating. There's a difference. You got to be able to empower both. Madison?
I think with that, we can celebrate John one more time and transition to the signing.
Thank you, thank you. I will never forget tonight. Thank you all. As I tell my students, peace and health. Peace and health.
Thank you so much. And we're going to conduct the signing right over here. Just give me a moment to close out the live stream, and we'll get our book purchasing and everything ready before we wrap things up. Thank you.